You are trained that you only do things that other people tell you to do. You're graded by other people. You don't have to think for yourself.
The last 10 years where I thought I was learning things, all I actually learned was how to take instruction.
So you were trained not to think for yourself and not to be self-rewarding, but to wait for instructions and rewards from other people. That's why we have an extremely passive society.
Why do you feel like most people choose to live a mediocre life? Like, you talk a lot about, like, oh, do this, do that. You know, to be a leader, you must show up. To be a leader, you must, you know, do the right things. And, like, for somebody who's, like, hustling and actually in the process, that's kind of like the basic stuff. It's like, wake up and do the work. You know, that's at the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to. Yet, most people that I bet that listen to your stuff barely take action to it, on it, right? And, you know, I come from a coaching world, and I saw that firsthand with, like, tons of companies where, like, you tell them, hey, this is exactly what you need to do to make money. Like, just follow the steps, and they don't. So, like, from your perspective and your experience, like, why do you feel like most people just choose to just, like, do whatever and just half-ass everything they do?
Yeah, you know, everybody wants to blame people and say people are lazy or nobody works hard anymore. They're not go-getters. I think when you look back at history, if you go back hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of years, the world has always gone through areas and windows of awareness. People are waking up to things. They're rebelling against the empire. They're trying to take down the emperor, right? And so if you look at our modern society, everybody thinks that people are passive. It's not. It's as for us in the U.S., if you go back to, let's say, late 1800s, most families were entrepreneurs. They either did farming, people were metalsmith, they were woodsmith, they were tailors, right? They had some type of expertise. Where, like my father, at the age of 9 in Lebanon, he had to help run his father's business. So he's very acute to things. He's very understanding. He's very communicative. He's very storytelling. He's very, right? But our society, the way we know it now, our school systems, the way we raise kids, the way we indoctrinated parents to make them want to go to grade school, high school, college, was actually designed by the elites, the Rockefellers and other families and organizations involved with the French, the British, and other countries in our government to create a society where people would actually want to work for someone else. And that's where our schooling system comes from. That's where our college curriculums come from, unless you're going to a specialty school or you have parents that can afford or are aware of the situation. So by the time in the most valuable years of your life, when you're most programmable, you are trained that you only do things that other people tell you to do. You're graded by other people. You don't have to think for yourself. You don't choose your 6th grade curriculum. The school chooses it for you. You have geography. You have social studies. You have history. You have math. You see what I'm saying? And you go through these phases. In the most developmental years of your brain, you become dependent on other people to tell you what needs to be done. And then you're graded and scored by your progress by other people. So by the time people become adults, they're no longer thinking like a child. They're waiting for instructions from others. And if there's no system for accountability or no repercussions, like in school, where if you get an F, you get, you don't get anything from your parents. Nobody rewards you. You're looked down upon. But if you get an A, you get $10 and you get rewarded. So you were trained not to think for yourself and not to be self-rewarding, but to wait for instructions and rewards from other people. That's why we have an extremely passive society.
That's interesting because, like, I come from a homeschooling background.
See?
Yeah.
That's why you're crazy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, I've never.
I agree with that.
My mother says the crazy ones are the best ones.
Did she say it like that too?
Yeah.
No, it's crazy because, like, I've never been, like, to me, hearing it from your perspective, it makes complete sense. But, kind of, I don't know the right word, but, accidentally have never really experienced that side of life. Mm-hmm. And so to me, it has always been like
oblivious.
Yeah. It's like, oh, like, how do you make money? I don't know. Go figure it out on your own. Like, it's like that, What are your guys' thoughts on all of this, though?
It's funny. It's really, really interesting. It was kind of a something that I had to realize within myself pretty recently, because I've always been like, I feel like I've always had, like, vision of, like, creating. I've always been innovative in a sense, but for, like, the most of, like, the last 10 years of my life, it's been school, college, job. And then finally, my last job, I really started to realize how miserable I was, just, like, from being somebody else's slave, right? And it got to a point where I convinced myself, I was like, I think from 10 years of working experience under companies, I now have enough tools within my utility belt to go out and do my own thing, right? And then alhamdulillah, when the last job got let go, I kind of ended up in this space where in my head I'm just like, yo, I don't know what to do. Like I know I want to do things, but I don't know what the first step is, right? And so I find myself, finding it difficult to like get things done.
Right.
And then it was a reality that hit me that was like, the last 10 years where I thought I was learning things so I can take them and go do my own thing.
Right.
All of those years, all I actually learned was how to take instruction.
There you go. See, you mentioned something very, very important to the audience or to us in the room. And it's that you were going job, 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 and you paid attention to a feeling that you had, which was, I'm not happy with this. What that means to me, and some people don't know how to recognize this. Learning how to recognizing it is a whole nother thing, a skill that you have to understand, and it's not difficult. When you're feeling that way, and my beliefs and my experience and sharing with other leaders and people who have come through those same filters and broke through, is that your mind, your soul, basically the way God created you is something inside of you is trying to tell you that you are nowhere near tapping into your potential. You were not created to be this limited. And people are passive to that. So they pick up vices or excuses or bad habits or anger, right? And they look for other ways to do it.
They're shutting off their intuitions. Their intuitions.
Sure, but intuition is usually regarded in ways that lack self-awareness. Okay, like it's used generically in society. Like, oh, I could tell that person was a bad person, or I could tell that girl was going to be drama, or I knew that guy was going to rip you off. It's usually outward about someone else. It's rarely inward about you. People are passive about themselves and critical about everyone else. So you recognize it, I recognize it. Most of the people that have to break through those barriers recognize it. Even our parents come from a generation where they were taught, in order to be a good parent, here's the pattern that you need, here's the stages of life that you need to take your kid through. And they didn't realize that what they were taught was the indoctrination of the industrial world. Right? Go to school, become a this, which is great for a lot of people. And if it is, if you know it's right for you, you love your job, you love your industry, you love being a manager here, that's fine. But if what you're doing isn't making you happy or you feel unfulfilled, then that means you need to recognize that and tap out.
I got a question, bro.
Yeah.
I got a question. My question is, when does your average person give up their independence to someone else?
When does the average person give up their independence
Like
to
at
someone
what point
else?
in their life, you mean?
Correct.
Okay.
Because we're all talking about going to school and just eventually we're little kids and we're programmed into being essentially a slave to someone else.
You begin giving up your independence before you're aware of it as a baby, because you're captured by the norms of your environment, whether it be family, socioeconomics, your friends in school, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So we're all able to think, but are we really thinking independently? There's a study that shows that 99% of your decisions aren't actually yours. They're influenced by something around you. So if that's the case, is it really a question of gaining back your independence, or is it understanding the society you live in and then re-surrounding yourself into a new group that actually aspires for the things that you want to accomplish in life? So if you know that there's going to be a lack of true independence in your life, at least associate yourself with the dependency in the right environment.